Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. I'm Scott Montgomery. I'm the editor-in-chief of Education Week, and I want to thank you all for being here this morning. Before we welcome Dr. Lucy Calkins to the stage, I wanted to just take a moment and tell you a little bit about her work. You all know her, but Lucy is the founding director of the Teachers College Reading and Writing Project, and she's the Richard Robinson Professor of Children's Literature at the Teachers College at Columbia University, where she also co-directs the Literacy Specialist Program. The Teachers College Reading and Writing Program has a staff of 80, and many of the most influential instructors in literacy are either part of that team or have been part of that team. Lucy regards her leadership of this extraordinary group of people to be among her biggest contributions to the field. Together, Lucy and her colleagues have led week-long, summer-intensive institutes to over 200,000 teachers and school leaders. Each year, the team provides long-lasting, field-based professional development to well over 1,000 schools across the world. And as you already know, Lucy is the co-author or author of more than 40 books, including most recently Leading Well, Building Schoolwide Excellence in Reading and Writing, and also Pathways to the Common Core, which in 2013 was a New York Times bestseller. So with that, I'd like to please welcome Dr. Lucy Calkins to the stage.
Well, I'm honored to be here and particularly to be following my friend Doug. It was amazing to have the two of us put on together, quite lucky for me. I think about the words of Roberta Flack's song, I feel the earth move under my feet. These are hard times for all of us in education. One of the statistics that means the most to me is Buckminster Fuller said that in 1900, the amount of knowledge that exists in the world was changing every century. Now the amount of knowledge that exists in the world is changing every 12 hours. So as Tony Wagner points out, this radically changes the teacher's job, because it used to be our job to deliver the information that mattered to the uninformed. The elements of the periodic table, the names of the planets. Now, of course, the elements of the periodic table, the names of the whole, which are the planets, is changing so fast. But more than that, we can Google any of this information more quickly than we can retrieve it from long-term memory. Knowledge is like air, it's everywhere. So that means that the teacher's job now is to teach kids to access knowledge, to organize it, to synthesize it, to compare it and contrast it, to dig under and find out the assumptions, to follow through and figure out the implications, to apply it, to make something of it. And that requires levels of composition and of comprehension that we didn't used to teach. Teachers are being asked to teach things now that we only did in college. You just think about 5th grade. When I was a 5th grade kid, my teacher was doing pretty well if we were asked to go to the S Encyclopedia Britannica and find Switzerland and copy down the national bird, the national flower onto our index cards, and then we'd move it from the index cards onto our paper, and then we would add a little clip art and yarn binding, and if we really wanted to exceed standards, we would get a board and make a salt and flour map and hang Hershey bars off of it, and we were doing really well. And now 5th grade students are asked to take a provocative topic, like is bottled water good for the environment, and to research that topic, gathering together sources from all over, and even to understand that those different sources are saying different things, and to figure out what is the point of view that is informing this, or the point of view that's informing that, and where do I stand, and what's my evidence for it. So teachers have a lot of on-the-job learning to do. And the problem is that teachers, and particularly teachers of reading, are under a lot of pressure to pretend that our methods of teaching are perfect. They are research-based, scientifically proven to leave no child behind. So there's a lot of pressure to armor up against any show of vulnerability, not realizing, as Brene Brown so beautifully puts it, that vulnerability is the cradle of all that we most long for in life, of wholeheartedness, of intimacy, of an all-in relationship. Schools aren't making it easy for teachers or for principals to say, I don't know, I'm not sure, I need help. As Brene Brown says, any culture that is saturated with blame and with shame, where trying and failing isn't okay, what's lost is the possibility of risk-taking, of approximation, I would add, of learning. It's worth noting that at Olin College, which is the #1 technological college in this country, the motto is fail early and fail often. They call failures iterations. They say we embrace the F word. In most schools, people are too on edge to do that. I was talking to a colleague who's director of language arts in a fancy Connecticut town, and I asked her, I said, what are your teachers really caring about right now? And without missing a beat, she said, safety. And this isn't even a district where we have to worry about kids being deported off the playground. Safety. I was thinking about that, and I realized this is a time of fear, of uneasiness. No matter where you are in the political spectrum, I think we all feel upheaval. Institutions that have held our government together are being tested as never before. The social media is radicalizing people in ways that we're particularly susceptible to because we're all novices at it. When people are asked, do you trust the people around you to do the right thing? Something like 76% of people used to say yes. Now, 32% of people say yes, and 19% of millennials say yes. I generally trust people around me to do the right thing. A lot of people are feeling lonely. The former Surgeon General said, the most common pathology that I'm encountering is not diabetes, not cancer, but loneliness. And it's worse for the health than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The problem, I would argue, is that when people feel lonely and threatened, it's in our mammal natures to retreat to our dens and to the security of those who look like us. In schools, as in our nation, there can be a sense of us versus them, of being under attack, of survival at any cost, of tribalism. And that's intensified in high-need schools. The problem is, fear is not a good context for risk-taking, for approximation, for trying new things. Fear is a good context if you're trying to get people to hit a nail faster and harder, but not if you're trying to get people to take risks, to outgrow themselves. So here we are approaching New Year's Day. New Year's, of course, for educators doesn't come between December and January. It comes right about now. And we all know that as leaders, this is the time to look back and to look forward. Now's the time to rally our people. To rally our people to whatever the new work is. And one of my favorite quotes in all of education is from that Peters and Waterman classic, In Search of Excellence, where they write at the end of their preface, I believe the real difference between success and failure of our work lies in the question of how well we bring out the great energies and talents of our people. What do we do to help our people find common cause with one another? I want to argue that in the year ahead, we need to turn our schools into places where everybody's learning curve is sky high. We need to make sure that adults as well as kids are given communities of practice. My folks are 95 and 98, and they live in the farmhouse where my 8 brothers and sisters and I grew up in Western New York. They live alone in this big farmhouse. As you can kind of imagine, the whole thing's a little bit of a house of cards. Dad doesn't hear very well, so when Mom wants to get his attention, she'll pick up any old dog toy that might be nearby and heave it at him and call, Evan! Usually my mom can get upstairs to the second floor to sleep up there, but sometimes she just doesn't have the strength to climb the stairs, and so she'll sleep in what we call the dog bed. It's really a day bed in the far reaches of the living room. And then my father doesn't want to sleep far away, so he'll sleep on the living room couch. And even that is pretty far away given his deafness, so he'll rope together all these dog leashes and leave one beside my mother, and then he ties one onto his arm so that when he's lying on the sofa, she can just sort of jerk him into action. In the middle of the night. A little while ago, my dad said to me, "Lucy, do you want to know what it's like to be 98? It's really not the thing I'm dying to be mentored in. But you know, the polite answer was, yeah, Dad, what is it like to be 98? He said, you wake up every morning and the first thing you do is you go and you check to see if Virginia's still breathing. And if she is, you get her a cup of coffee in her special cup, and you have another day. And each day is a gift. So on this particular day, Dad woke up and looked across the room, and Mom was in the bed beside him, writhing and jerking and foaming. And my dad is a physician. He knew what was going on. He called my sister, also a doctor, and he said to Joan, Virginia's having a grand mal seizure. And Joan said, I'll get the ambulance and I'll be right over. And Joan drives 15 minutes. She rushes over. She stands in the doorway of the room and she looks in and she sees my mom lying there comatose and my father sitting beside her. And my sister said to Dad, is she alive? And Dad said, I don't know. And my sister said, you don't know? And Dad said, I didn't want to check and find out that she's gone and to be alone with it. So I waited for you to come. And I totally get it. Because the truth of the matter is, we human beings don't want to be alone in the hard parts of life. And the truth is, what teachers are being asked to do is hard. Roland Barthes, who founded Harvard's Principal Center, said all too often relationships among two teachers are like relationships among 2-year-olds in the sandbox. One has the shovel, the other has the pail. They talk all the time, but never to each other. The problem is, in a good school, teachers are talking all the time. Teachers are in and out of each other's classrooms, they're sharing their stuff, they think of the kids as our kids, and they wish each other well. Roland Barthes and I went into a staff room together, and we noticed on the sign of the door said no children allowed. And Roland pointed out to me, that's just the written rule. The unwritten rule is no talking about children allowed. And yet, as Carrie Leone points out, in all of our schools, you take teachers at any one grade level. Let's take 3rd grade. You've got teachers who are more experienced and skilled and teachers who are less experienced and skilled. And the single best way to raise the level of teaching in a school is to decrease the gap between the most experienced and the less experienced. That is to democratize what teachers know. And the way to do that is to have teachers talking. Have teachers planning curriculum together, have teachers studying student work together, have teachers revising curriculum in the light of student work. All too often in schools, there's many teachers have never dreamt that a grade level group of teachers can be this incredible, vital learning community. Many teachers have never imagined that during prep time they might meet with their colleagues to be planning their teaching. Every year, hundreds of principals and teachers visit the Teachers College Reading and Writing Project schools that dot the world. And when they come to visit, very often what they want to see are grade level planning meetings. Because it's those grade level planning meetings where you take good teaching to scale. So I wish I could put you on a magic school bus and I could bring you to some of these schools and we could just slip in on a planning meeting, and we can't do that. But what I'm going to do is to just have you watch 2.5 minutes of a planning meeting. And this is a meeting where 3rd grade teachers are getting ready. It's the middle of 3rd grade. They're getting ready to teach a new unit. And the unit includes book clubs. And you'll see there's a teacher in the sort of front right this is her first year teaching. So she's just asked a question about book clubs. And I want you to watch this as an ethnographer, trying to think about what is the tools, what are the assumptions of how things go, who's talking, what's getting written down, and what does this say about shared curriculum in this school and in the schools in which I work. So listen really closely because it goes very quickly. really loud.
Yeah. Yeah, we have the one from,
The one where they make a goal.
yeah, last year, some tools that we've used, in the past to stay organized. Yeah, just the club members with the books that they're reading. And then, this is a little more specific, it's kind of the materials that they're using, how to prepare for conversations, and the kinds of writing that they're gonna do, just to hold everyone accountable for what they're doing. And then, in the book on, page 59 in that mini lesson, the coaching part. It's going up and down the story mountain. It kind of has like the coaching in for what you're supposed to be doing for a book club, and something that's worked in the past is to kind of videotape a model partnership or a model book club, because then you can watch it as a class together and kind of like coaching to see what makes that book club go well and what can we do to make it even better.
You would do that with this first session?
It could be. Something I'm struggling with is, do we want to do this inquiry before we start book clubs so that this way the expectations are set together before we start, or do we want to do it after we start book clubs and then do it
I feel
inquiry?
like maybe a day of trying it out, and like, and there was really mentioning like you're gonna want to observe, so I think it'll be interesting to observe first, like that first lesson, you're just gonna be spending more time just like,
Yeah, and then that way you see what they need, right?
and then from there we can, because each class might have its different problems to tackle,
Exactly.
so it might be nice.
And then you could even do the videotape as like a share at the end.
Something you might want to try out too is trying to maybe model that or any of these predictable problems that might come up in your individual class and read aloud. So like bringing that to bringing that type of jot or that idea to read aloud to get them to feel with like to have that conversation as like a whole class book club, so then they know what it feels like when they get into their individual book clubs.
Maybe during read aloud, well, two things I'm thinking of. One, maybe during read aloud they sit with their club, because I feel like before they were just really sitting with their reading partner, but maybe it would make the conversation more rich if they're used to being with their club and having those things. They might be more supportive.
What was that a major goal of the unit?
What?
The idea of the story on
Yeah,
story arc.
yeah,
So then
yeah.
because of that, I think that is something to address early on.
Early on.
I mean, it comes up in this first lesson.
Right, and we were talking about too, so in writing, like I was looking at the writing unit, they've done it a lot with the story arc stuff, but we haven't necessarily talked about it yet in reading, so maybe we bring up some of the stuff from the
Or
writing.
make that
lessons.
connection
Yeah,
before
Yeah.
going there.
we can think about that and connections,
Right.
workshop, something.
So talk to the person beside you. As an ethnographer, what did you notice about grade level planning happening there? And how's it like it's happening in your school or different? Colleagues, my argument today is that I think if we have grade level planning meetings that feel like that in all of our grades in all of our schools, we're going to be beginning to raise the level of teaching and learning across the school. And of course, that requires a shared curriculum, and one that asks a lot of teachers. In a lot of our schools, there's a shared curriculum around kindergarten, first and second grade reading and writing. But very often, grades 3 through 8 either becomes glorified test prep, where no teachers are going to want to gather together to learn how to teach this, or the message to teachers is, let 1,000 flowers bloom, Each of you create whatever units you want to do, and the curriculum ends up looking like a Saturday morning flea market with different units kind of jerry-rigged together, one on a book, one on friendly letter and adjectives and haiku, and in fact, in those schools, you'll see a lot of so-called staff development or professional development. Reform is just adding more inflation of curriculum, as Doug was talking about. The quote that teachers have responded to the most of any quote I've ever said is one from Michael Fullan that goes like this: one of the biggest problems in our schools is not resistance to innovation, but the fragmentation, overload, and incoherence resulting from too many innovations adapted in an ad hoc, superficial way, uncoordinated with ongoing work and with each other. Doug is so right, but one of the things that's really important is focus. Warren Buffett says, my greatest gift as an investor, and in a way, all of us as educators are investors. He says, I look at investment proposals and I say, no, 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 no. And then one comes along that's exactly right, and I say yes. Now, part of this involves teachers, principals, school districts saying no to an image of what it is to be a professional teacher that says that the professional teacher goes home Monday night and invents curriculum to do in your own classroom on Tuesday. I personally hope that if I ever have neurosurgery done on me, that my neurosurgeon is not the kind of professional surgeon who goes home Monday night and invents the technique he's going to use to do neurosurgery on me on Tuesday. In most fields, you think of professional as somebody who stands on the knowledge base of the field and contributes to the knowledge base of the field. But it's really important to understand that if you're going to be teaching kids higher level comprehension and composition skills, you need to have a coherent curriculum. We can't teach kids to multiply fractions unless they come to 3rd or 4th grade understanding something about fractions. And you can't teach kids to write a research-based argument essay in 5th grade where they're going to be including counter-argument and analyzing data if they don't come to 5th grade knowing how to write a good persuasive piece with a claim and reasons and with evidence. So in Teachers College Reading and Writing Project schools, you'll see a kind of strand of work on argument writing or on main idea or on information writing going from kindergarten up to 8th grade. So let's just look, for example, at 1st grade. In 1st grade, the kids are doing persuasive writing. They come in for a unit of study on persuasive writing, and they're going to learn to write reviews of restaurants and games and books. The unit begins with the kids bringing a shoebox full of stuff in, their very favorite things. So it might be baseball cards, or it might be hairbands or plastic horses, and then they have a kind of dog show or a horse show or plastic hairband show. Miguel brought his very favorite things in, which is a shoebox full of his mother's bras. And this is his persuasive writing, arguing for the first place bra. Look at those dots. Be thinking about what Miguel knows as a 1st grader. Look at those dots. This pink polka dot is the prettiest because it has so many dots. That is a lot of dots. It's prettier than the boring white. Way prettier. Now, because Miguel's writing like that, and kids are going through the system, developing their ability to write persuasively, to write argumentatively, Jack is able to write like this, and you're not going to be able to read Jack's writing, but I'll read it, a little bit of it for you. Why chocolate milk should stay. Schools should keep serving chocolate milk. There should be chocolate milk because kids like it. It gives them vitamins. It gives kids good habits. Many kids love chocolate milk. It makes them happy to see it in the cafeteria, in their lunchbox, at the kitchen table. Research shows that overall, chocolate milk is pretty good for kids. Even though some people think it's bad that kids like chocolate milk more than white milk, it's actually especially important that kids like chocolate milk. It turns out that more kids drink milk when they can get chocolate milk. When you interview a lot of parents, like Katie Carrick did, they'll say that their kids only drink milk if they can get chocolate milk. So at least they're drinking milk. In a survey of students at this school, 84% said they would drink more milk if they had chocolate milk available. Of those same students, 28% said they wouldn't drink any milk at all if it weren't chocolate. moving forward, it is true that Jamie Oliver, a chef and an enemy of chocolate milk, chocolate milk does have added sugar. Jamie is a famous English chef who was involved with a lunch for kids in Los Angeles. In a shocking video, Jamie shows a school bus filled with sugar to show how much sugar school kids get with chocolate milk. But there are a lot of school kids in the United States, and if you divide that busload up between all those kids, it will not be such a shocking amount. And if you put next to it a bus filled with vitamins A, D, E, and calcium that the kids also get, that might point a different picture. So that's why we should keep serving chocolate milk. Maybe it's true it has a little bit of sugar, but it gets kids to drink milk, and it gives them vitamins and good habits. Personal insider experience supports this claim. As a fifth grader, this investigator was part of an experiment to ban chocolate milk in his cafeteria. Fifth graders, though, are allowed to go out for lunch with no chocolate milk. This luncheon seeker started going out for pizza and Coke, along with all vitamins. Jamie Oliver doesn't necessarily know what happens inside schools. When something is taken away at lunch that's even a little good for you, it's not always replaced by something better or anything at all. In fact, the vitamins from chocolate milk may possibly be the only ones that some kids get in school lunch. So keep chocolate milk, kids' main source of vitamins, good habits, and happiness. When teachers have a shared and cohesive curriculum and shared learning progressions against which they can chart student progress, professional development happens on the job. So I was with a group of teachers recently who had made a kind of class set of argument essays by cobbling together some from each of their rooms. And they were norming their evaluations of these essays, starting by just bad ones, okay ones, good ones. And they did this really quickly and realized that two of the teachers had taken essentially a rant and put it in the highest pile, whereas all the other teachers had taken the same rant and put it in the lowest pile. And this conversation ensued with the teachers who had put it in the highest pile saying, it's passionate, it's not cookie cutter, this person has a lot of feelings, and the other teachers saying, it has no structure. It doesn't make a claim, it doesn't have reasons, it doesn't have evidence. Yes, this is a good writer, and with some good in teaching, the writing could be moved to the highest. They agreed on this, and my feeling watching that was it was one of the best bits of PD that I've ever seen. Now what happened as that conversation continued was the teachers came to realize that most of the essays in the best pile were all from one class. And they were literally saying to the teacher, what the hell are you feeding those kids? You know, how do you get them to do work like this? Now, that realization that good student work is the result of good teaching. And that we can ask, what are you doing? And come and learn from you. That's pretty much as important as anything that can be taught. When teachers teach writing alongside of each other, big insights like that emerge, because good teaching of writing leads to dramatic, visible progress almost overnight in writing. It's harder to get one's hands on growth in reading because it happens in the black box of the mind. But I think it's really important in schools that teachers have a more concrete understanding of what progress in comprehension looks like. About 10 years ago, a group of colleagues and I were going through a school, and it was October, and everybody was reading fiction at that time. And interestingly enough, they were all pretty much talking about character, which is a sort of normal thing to do if you're reading fiction, so that's fine. But in first grade, third grade, fifth grade, and seventh grade, they not only were all talking about character, but all of the readers were doing the same work. In first grade, it was Poppleton is a good friend because. In middle school, it's Hester Prynne is a strong woman because. And I realized that it's not clear to a lot of teachers what growth in comprehension looks like. What do you expect of character trait work for an 8th grader versus a 3rd grader versus a 1st grader? So let's try it just for a second. You all know Charlotte's Web. If you don't know it, you get the gist of it. It's Fern who runs out to pull the axe away from her father saying, don't kill that pig, saves the life of the pig, and she ends up living in the barn, befriending all the animals, and she and Templeton the rat and Charlotte the spider save over the pig one more time later on. Okay, so here's the challenge with your partner. One of you is going to be a 1st grader, one of you a 3rd grader, or one of you could be a 3rd grader and one of you a middle schooler. quickly tell each other what grade you are. Just you can mention it. All right. You're going to write in the air a little post-it showing your character trait work. Okay, as a first grader about Charlotte's Web, or a third grader, or a seventh grader. Fern is. Okay, Fern is. What's going to be different? First grade, third grade, seventh grade. Do it quickly. Go. Just say it in the air. Be sure you say what grade you are. So, colleagues, can I bring you back? Folks, I have so little time. In fact, in first grade, when you ask kids to develop theories about characters, very often they're not going with character traits. They're going with character emotions, right? So first grade, it would be common for the first graders working, it would be fine for their work to be, Fern is sad because her dad's going to kill the pig, okay? By third grade, you need your kids to know character trait as different than emotion. So it would be, Fern is the kind of person who is caring because she defends the pig, and she, by third grade, characters are complicated, they're more than one way. She is also strong-minded because she fights with her dad to save the pig. Okay, characters are more than one way. Now, by seventh grade, you're going to be wanting, Fern is a social advocate who stands up for justice. And we see this because she argues with her father, if I was little, would you kill me? Or Fern is a leader. She gathers together all of the characters in the barn to work together for a cause that's bigger than themselves. Right? Let's do this with nonfiction for a minute. Imagine you have a little article about camels, and the article tells you how their hump holds water and their feet, and the birds live off of them and so forth, and you're going to do main idea work, all right? In your mind, just do this. We don't have time to actually do it. Second grade, main idea work on this little camel thing. The main idea is, just think of second grade. And now, third, fourth grade, the camel piece. How would the main idea work be different? Middle school, how would the main idea work be different? Let me just tell you, a lot of teachers can't answer these questions. If you can't answer these questions, how do you teach it? Okay. Second grade would be typical. This is an article about camels. And there's subtopics, the hump, the feet. Okay. By third grade, you need it to be main idea, not main topic. Okay. You call it main idea in second grade, but a topic will do. Okay. By third grade, this is a book about how camels' bodies are made for life on the desert. The hump holds water, even in the climate. The feet are made for walking on the sand. By seventh grade, this is an article about how animals' bodies are adapted to their environment. And the camel's body is adapted, as is the bird that lives on the camel, which makes us worry that with the environment's changing, that's going to be trouble. You need more than one central idea in seventh grade, and it's going to be moving up the level of abstraction. If teachers don't know this, how do they teach it? If they have a coherent curriculum that's undergirded by a knowledge of learning progressions, then teachers can come together and they can track student progress, and they can look at student progress as a reflection of their teaching, and they can learn from what's moving kids forward, as Doug talked about, and what's not moving kids forward. So today, as we ready ourselves for the new year, let's rally teachers in our schools, principals in our districts to work together around a shared cohesive curriculum that is undergirded by learning progressions and understanding that skills develop with good teaching. Let's help all of us feel safe enough to say, I don't know this stuff. I need help. And understand that we don't know this, and learning is in order. And please keep in mind that all of this is only going to work if there is engagement from the kids, the teachers, from you. So remember that all-important quote by Peterson Waterman: the difference between success and failure of your work lies in the question of how well you bring out the great energies and talents of your people. What do you do to help your people find common cause with one another? I think David Brooks is onto something when he suggests that people across this nation are suffering from a crisis of meaning. Teachers certainly are. As Brooks tells us, 20 years ago, UCLA freshmen were asked, what do you really long for in life, and given choices? They mostly chose to find a meaningful philosophy of life. Just recently, UCLA freshmen were asked, what do you really long for in life? And what they chose: number one, financial security; number two, fame. Google traces the use of words, just in books, television, current lingo, and the use of economic words is skyrocketing. Words like output, payoff, bottom line, value added, and optimize. Whereas the value words is plummeting. The use of the word bravery is down 66%. Gratitude, down 49%. Humility, down 52%. Brooks suggests that maybe we need a new national story to replace the story of the lone individual who rises up with grit to acquire success. He writes, for too many people, the story isn't working. Either the system seems too rigged, the odds too steep, or success, once achieved, too hollow. We've all seen, he's not talking about literacy reform, but he could be. We've all seen education, and the teaching of reading specifically, taken over by the rags to riches milieu story. The lone student, teacher, district, principal that races, claws to the top. And we know that when achievement and rankings are all that matters, and when they feel out of reach or hollow once you get them, the result can be cynicism and disengagement. Brooks argued that maybe we need a new national, and I would add a new educational story. Instead of the lone individual who rises up with hard work and pluck, maybe the story needs to be about communities that come together to heal, to support, to reach, to approximate, to take risks, to learn. And I think it's important to remember that when people read and write together, we do form communities of meaning. I recently relearned this. I was visiting my folks on a weekend, and I happened to stay over Sunday night, which isn't usual. But the good thing was I was able to go to the book club. So I'm kind of an honorary member of my parents' book club, because when my mom turned 90, I couldn't think of what to get her for her birthday present. You can't really give a 90-year-old a tennis racket or a kayak paddle So I got the idea to give her a book club. And I got 10 copies of the hardbound version of Snow in August and mailed them out to 10 people I thought would be good people for her book club. And then I created a dinner and had them all come to my parents' house, and they had a book club. And at the book club, I had the next book ready and the next dinner ready. And that was when she turned 90, and she's now 95, turning 96. So for all this time, the book club's gone on. So this particular Sunday, I'm able to go. And I was so glad to go and have my little internalized checklist for book clubs. You saw the teachers talking about the book clubs with third graders, I haven't really thought about a book club for 90-year-olds, but, I was ready to see when one person, raised a point, did the others, look for evidence in the text, and did they all open the text and talk between the text and the point, and when one person said something, did we stay on topic, I agree with you, I want to add on, I partly disagree, or, I was all ready to check it out. Well, this book club was so totally off my charts. I mean, they watched the Preakness horse race, they had some sherry, they started to talk about one part of the book and ended talking about some disaster in somebody's family and what had happened. They passed around the various candidates for the next book as they were eating, and on the way home, my mother's a very smart woman, and on the way home, I'm Mom, do you like that book club? And she said, Lucy, You know, over the last 5 years, you've given us 2 presents that really mattered. Rhodey and the book club. Now, Rhodey is my mom's standard poodle. When her last one died, she was going to get a puppy, so I found a retired show dog poodle for her to get instead, Rhodey. And Rhodey is my mom's constant companion. Rhodey's everything to her. That she was comparing the book club to Rhodey. And then she said, she says, it's not so bad. She says, I read books I would never have read. She said, that freedom, if you take the word fuck out of it, it would be half its life. And she said, and Shackleton taking us up to Antarctica and whatnot, she says, I feel sort of stuck in the kitchen. It's not so bad doing that. Then she said, besides, when I was at the rehab center, it was the book club that visited, not the church. It was the book club. So I tell you this because it was startling to me. I realized that my little internalized checklist for what makes a good book club kind of felt small and my criteria cramped. Although all this work with learning progressions and skills and strategies can accelerate kids' progress as readers, we do also have to have the humanity to remember that we need to be teaching kids why read and why write, as well as how to read and how to write. So I've revised my rubric for a book club, and I include in it, does the club forge relationships of camaraderie, creating intimacy and community around the big work of being human? Does the club prompt members to read books that help them to entertain ideas, to care about people, that bring new dimension to their lives, that get us out of our bubbles? Naomi Shihab Nye said, when you love someone who's different from you, your heart stretches, you grow. I've been reading So You Want to Talk About Race, and I'm falling in love with that author. And it's painful, and my heart breaks and stretches absolutely. Absolutely. It's not just reading that does this, writing does it as well. In many classrooms, kids are kind of invisible. Gloria Lansing-Billings says that one of the most important things we can do is to call kids out of hiding. Remember that call when we were little and we would play kick the can and we would be hiding and the call would go out and, ollie, ollie in free, come out, wherever you are. Well, that's the call that goes out in any writing workshop. Ollie, ollie in free, come out, wherever you are, whoever you are. I was in a classroom in the Bronx, and I was on my way to a different room, but the principal sometimes has me stop by different rooms like I'm the Pope to kind of say, bless you, bless you, bless you. So I was in this one bless you room, and it was a celebration. So I told the principal I'd stay for a little while, and Marisol stood up to read. And Marisol was dressed in her Holy Communion finery for the author's celebration, which right there, just, it looked like a little bride, a large bride. I was going to say a little bride. So in 5th grade, you have these large women and then these little tiny guys. It's a sort of odd look of the class. Anyhow, Marisol read her memoir, and it went like this. I'm the kind of kid who never had a birthday party. I live with my step-grandma, and she tells me, get going, and where have you been? She cooks macaroni for me, but she doesn't think about my birthday. Last summer, I was back in the Dominican Republic, and my baby step-cousin, he had a birthday party. No one could tell I never had one. Soon I'll be 10. In my dreams, there'll be a birthday party. In my dreams, we'll play Duck, Duck, Goose, listen to the radio, and there'll be a pink cake. But then my dream ends. I'm the kind of kid who never had a birthday party. A week later, Marisol turned 10, and the kids in the class and their parents and grandparents gave her a birthday party in the park. And these great big 5th graders, listened to the radio and played Duck, Duck, Goose. And there was a big pink sheet cake, and on it the words to Marisol, for all the birthdays that you never had. And back in the class, later, the kids talked about how Marisol is no longer the kind of kid who never had a birthday. And they talked about how words did that. Words gave us something as big as a nation. I mean, what do we celebrate on July 4th but a time when people went in a very little room and put words on the page, and out of those words we created a nation. And they talked about how words created something as big as a birthday party. And what I want to say is words can create something as big and as beautiful as a learning community in a school. Rufus Jones, the great American Quaker, has said, I pin my hopes on the small circles and quiet processes in which genuine and reforming change takes place. You know, there's research on happiness. And the research on happiness says that you think the things that are going to make you happy don't actually make you happy. Like you win the lottery, and your happiness apparently spikes for a little while, but then it goes right back to your normal level of happiness. Something terrible happens, you become disabled, and you become sad, but your level of happiness goes right back to normal. Very few things actually change a person's level of happiness. One of the only things that does is the opportunity to work with a small group of people on a cause you care about. We've got to give ourselves, the teachers in our care, the principals in our care, the opportunity to do just that.